In three, two, one. Hello, and welcome to Know the Score. I'm your host, Don Delarente, and this week I'm joined by the full cast of characters as returning. I have That's So Jesse. What's going on, Jesse?
Hey, what's up?
How you doing?
I'm good. Just finished watching the Super Bowl. So yeah, let's go.
Good to talk to you. We also have returning this week none other than Mr. Nabias Wilborn. What's going on, Nabias?
Man, same old stuff, different day, man. How the boys and girls doing? Everybody good?
Yeah, man, we're
Good,
good. We're
good.
great.
All right,
And
sounds
last
like a
but
win.
not least, we also are joined this week, returning once again with the Libra icon, Dwayne. What's going on, Dwayne?
Not much. Just left the bar and happy to still be able to be coherent. So yeah.
All right. Know the Score is brought to you by CSPN.us. You can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play. You can also download and subscribe to Know the Score through any app that plays podcasts on iTunes or Android phones. So, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, we are minutes after the conclusion of the Super Bowl number 52 taking place in Minneapolis, Minnesota, as the Philadelphia Eagles, the underdogs of the playoffs, pull off the miracle and they beat the New England Patriots 41 to 33. Nick Foles is your MVP. Doug Peterson with a masterful job of play calling and coaching, being aggressive. The Eagles defense comes up with the money play in the fourth quarter, stopping the Patriots' last comeback attempt as Tom Brady, for all intents and purposes, going for a 2 minute drive, gets sacked, fumbled. Eagles recover. They give the ball back to the Patriots with a few seconds left. Patriots get to the 50. They get one Hail Mary. Ball gets knocked down in the end zone. And the Eagles are your world champions. So, Miss Jessie, we'll start with you. Your thoughts, the aftermath of the game, and congrats to the champions, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I didn't really see. Ooh, hold on. I didn't really see the game unfolding the way that it did. Um, I think remember the line was New England 4.5. I was kind of wishy washy on how the game would turn out. I knew that the way that the Eagles would win the Super Bowl would be to ratchet up, of course, ratchet up the pressure on Tom Brady, but you also have to kind of just covering their quote unquote weapons of sorts. And during the game, we saw Brandon Cooks go down. That was not optimistic, but I kind of worried when players were getting separation from the safeties. So I think the turning point here was that the Patriots defense wasn't very good. They're soft. They're terrible. No, not terrible, but they weren't very good. And yeah, you can't let the other team score 41 and expect to win the Super Bowl.
All right, Tobias, I'll bring you in. Your thoughts, conclusion of the Super Bowl.
I mean, who would have saw it going that way? I mean, I think everybody would. What 2:20 left? Brady with the ball, two timeouts. I mean, I wouldn't. I think if you ask everybody in their heart of hearts, I would say 95% of people probably assume that Brady was going to drop for a touchdown, right? I mean, it's just the movie that we've seen so many times. But what happened? The Eagles were really good at getting pressure. That's the one place where Brady really struggles. He doesn't step up in the pocket well. Whenever you get pressure on him, it tends to mess with him. And in that situation, it did. They got the sack, fumble, and then also give the Eagles credit. They went down. They held on to the ball. They didn't rush, unlike a certain team last year. We ain't gonna go there, but they took their time. I think Doug Peterson called. I'm not gonna say out Coach Belichick. I ain't gonna go that far, but Doug Peterson has really shown himself to be one of the best coaches in the NFL today. I mean, the way he went through this playoff saying, the way he called this game. I mean, not just. I mean, obviously you had the offensive defensive coordinator, but just the way that coaching staff worked together. I don't know if I've seen a better coaching performance in the last 5 years.
Yeah, Doug Peterson definitely deserves a lot of credit for the way he had his team prepared and the in-game adjustments and his aggressiveness. We'll get into that a little bit later. Dwayne, I'll let you get the final thoughts on just final conclusions and thoughts about what took place tonight in the Super Bowl.
It was a really, really excellent game. I thought that these two teams, it was a slugfest and a shootout, if you will. And but the bend don't break philosophy of the Patriots really came back to haunt them because they broke a lot, and Matt Patricia is going to take that to Detroit, which is not a good thing. So, uh, but it was really just the one play that made the difference. Both teams didn't get that much pressure going on the whole game, and the Eagles finally made through on that Pat's offensive line. And once that sack fumble happened, there was really nothing that anybody could do to save that. Tuck Rule couldn't save him. Nothing could have really saved him in this one. And it was really a great game. Great calling by Doug Peterson. A lot of gutsy calls, and it seems like the calls that are gutsy, the more gutsier the calls, like that 4th and 1, having Nick Foles catch a touchdown pass, and that really made a huge difference in the game. And then it just was one of those bold moves, kind of like the onside kick Sean Payton did with the Saints back in 2009. Bold move that paid off, and the momentum was in Philadelphia's favor. Everything New England did come at for the Eagles had a response, and that's really one of the ways you beat the Patriots. You run the ball, and we alluded to this earlier in a previous show, is that if you run the ball and you run the ball well on New England, you will likely win the game. That's how all 4 of their losses went this season, including the Super Bowl. Each team pretty much had like 100 to 150, maybe even 200 yards on the ground.
Yeah, I got it right here. Blunt had 14 carries for 90 yards and a touchdown. Jay Ajayi had 9 rushes for 57 yards. As a team, the Eagles rushed for 164 yards. But I think a lot that nobody saw coming was the game that Aguilar had and Clement out of the backfield. Clement had 4 catches for 100 yards. Basically, the touchdown on 4th and 1 there where they went for it up the seam that looked like it could have went either way. The first of 2 touchdowns that the Eagles got that could have went either way. Both calls went for the Eagles. And Aguilar had 9 catches in this game. Didn't score a touchdown, but had a lot of good first down catches. And then Zach Ertz being the closer, getting basically the decisive touchdown in the 4th quarter to put the Eagles ahead. So yeah, like just great game planning. When the Eagles got in the red zone, they came out with touchdowns. I think they only kicked 1 field goal in this game. And then they held the Patriots to field goals. And then the Patriots special teams left 5 points out there. They missed a field goal. They missed 2 extra points. Their kickoff coverage really wasn't that great. Their return coverage was kind of iffy. And defensively, like Jesse and Dwayne alluded to, they just weren't up to par tonight. The Eagles, on every drive, especially after the Patriots scored, seemed to get a big play on that first down to start the drive, and they get 20 or 25 yards off that first play, and the drive was, on its way. So, like I said, just big ups to Nick Foles, man. The moment never got to him. Once the game became 33-32 in favor of the Patriots, you kind of was looking for Nick Foles and the pressure of the game to cave in around him, but it never happened, man. He stayed cool, and they went down. They had another answer for the Patriots and put the Patriots back on their heels. So just a great game all around. Now, I'll start back with Jesse as far as what you saw from New England tonight offensively. They seemed to do their normal type of deal. Brady had over 500 yards passing, but it seemed like something was just a little bit off tonight. They were going for field goals instead of getting touchdowns in the first half. Kind of just think that it was maybe Philly's defense or maybe just the Patriots a little bit off.
I think it's a little bit off. I mean, it's hard to say just because I think both were at play. Yeah, the offense wasn't really spectacular, and then I don't know what was going on with Brady's hand because he was throwing ducks in places. I'm like, he would usually get those to his receiver about 20, like 100 out of 98 out of 100 times. So, I mean, yes, it was partly the Phillies defense, but it was it was all off. So.
I mean, it's kind of what happens when guys get injured, right? I mean, you look at Brandon Cooks come out. You look at what's the other kid? I mean, they had two players get concussions, or concussion-like symptoms or head injuries within
Patrick Chung.
Yeah, I mean, Chung's a defender. Excuse me, what I'm saying, but like you look at Cook's score. I mean, he's a big part of what they do. He goes out, things change. I mean, yeah, you used to have Gronk, but when you're missing so many guys, I mean, it becomes a compounding situation. I mean, but the bottom line is the Eagles' defense, when they needed to, they made plays. Shout out to that defensive line, that linebacker core led by Fletcher Cox. I mean, they continue to make plays when it counted, even though it's a high scoring game. They stopped those guys a few times, and obviously it was enough. But I mean, I'm still amazed that it happened for the Eagles. I mean, you go into this. What, a month ago we were saying, the Eagles would be lucky to win a round, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what Nick Foles is going to be. They had lost that game. What was it, to the Cowboys at the end of the season? They looked really bad with Foles. They get the bye week, and then they struggle against a very inconsistent Atlanta Falcons team. If Julio Jones makes that catch, we're not even having this conversation. Ball kind of hit his hands, but we gonna let that go. But that being said, they go from that, then they destroy the Minnesota Vikings, and then they win a Super Bowl. I mean, this is an incredible run. I'm really impressed that it happened. I assumed the Patriots were going to win just because, I mean, you can't really count them out. And even towards the end of that game, I mean, they still, were making plays all the way up until the end. So, kudos to the Eagles, and, good for that city, man.
Yeah, definitely. Kudos to the Eagles. I think the big turning point in the game was right there before halftime. It was 15-12. The Eagles were down there on the 1 yard line. A field goal makes it 18-12, up by 6. The Patriots are going to get the ball coming out of halftime, and like Dwayne said, he had Peterson had the guts to throw that kind of trick play to Nick Foles. Nick Foles caught the touchdown. And earlier in the game, the Patriots tried to throw back pass to Tom Brady, and the ball went just off his fingertips. I mean, that's just a difference in the Super Bowl, literally. Just a few inches or a toe or just the ball moving around. So one of the best entertaining Super Bowls in a while. It was definitely, full of offense, a couple of defensive plays here and there, but not a lot of penalties. A lot of people thought that this officiating crew was going to muck the game up by calling a lot of penalties. We didn't have a lot of penalties, so this was very enjoyable. Dwayne, do we know that this is a copycat league? The Eagles have kind of, find that perfect championship blend of the college offense with the NFL offense. Is this going to maybe start a new wave where offensive coordinators won't be so afraid to incorporate the college style offense and maybe open it up for some of these quarterbacks and make it easier to evaluate some of these guys?
I think not necessarily. I think, this was something that worked for the Eagles. I mean, Doug Peterson took what he learned from Andy Reid because, he's been an Andy Reid disciple for a very, very long time. And, he incorporated a lot of elements that he took on his own, along with what he learned from Andy, and made this offense. You do see a few teams do have similar styles in a sense, but not to this potency where you could plug in a backup quarterback and, he runs the offense, just as efficiently as the original starter did in Carson Wentz. And so my whole thing is, this might be a wave. I mean, it's like you said, it's a copycat league. I can see teams trying to emulate it, but you need a whole buy-in from, everybody in the unit. And so and a buy-in from the entire team, and that's what the Eagles had. Especially with the way they plugged in guys where their top guys were out. So imagine if their starters were still playing, and how it would probably be an even greater run. And I don't think they would have even been underdogs. They would have been, the heavy favorites. So it's going to be emulated, but I don't think it's going to be duplicated unless you have guys that totally buy in.
All right. Now let's switch it over to what did the Patriots do from here? Brady's going to be turning 41 coming up this summer, right before training camp starts. We've heard some reports this year about internal fighting, and everything's not wonderful in Camelot. Both of the major coordinators are both going to be leaving for head coaching jobs, so it's going to be a bunch of turnover in the coaching ranks. So Tobias, kind of, what do you see going forward here? Does this maybe the first real chip in the dynasty starting to fall apart here?
Well, I mean, Gronkowski just said that he wasn't sure if he was coming back. I mean, and can you blame him? I mean, he's a obviously he's a very physically strong guy, but his body has taken a beating. The last few years. I mean, he didn't get to play in last year's Super Bowl because he missed most of the season. He just had another concussion. I think that's his third that's been reported that we know of. He took some tough hits in this game. I mean, if Gronk doesn't come back, I mean, that changes everything that the Patriots do. What's Brandon Cooks going to be like? What happens with Malcolm Butler? I mean, 3 years ago he was the hero of the game. Now he's playing special teams. So, I mean, the Patriots have a lot of questions to answer. It's easy to say, well, Belichick and Brady, they're just going to figure it out. But, we said it about the Cavs and LeBron, and they're not quite figuring it out right now. So I don't know if the Patriots get it together and what that looks like. But, I mean, I say that now, 30 minutes, an hour after the game got off. Who knows? They make some moves in free agent and get some draft picks and are right back at it. So as of now, I would say things are in question, but, we'll see. Whoever that GM is going to earn his money this year.
Yeah, I know the Patriots are due to pay Gronk quite a bit of money, so I wouldn't be surprised if they traded him or anything like that. Then you have to think about Josh Daniels and Matt Patricia. Your offensive and your defensive coaches are leaving for Indianapolis and Detroit, respectively.
Yep,
correct.
So there's just flux everywhere.
Also, I think that we got the whole bunch of turnover, salary situations, and Brady is getting up there in age, and Brian Hoyer is the current backup. Of course, you wanted to keep Jimmy G there, but they shipped him off to San Francisco, and so, and it just wasn't. It's going to be a lot of things to fill, and this might be the beginning of the end. But every time we think it's the beginning of the end for New England, they find a way to do it. And so, but I do know that after we saw Brady win MVP, the last MVP to win the Super Bowl was Kurt Warner in '99. So it was kind of just a bad omen in that direction. And Tom Brady was one of the MVPs that lost in that 2007 Super Bowl to the Giants too. So I don't know what's going to happen, especially with, the coordinators leaving. Belichick has really no heir apparent, just in case something does happen to Tom Brady at the age of 41. And so we'll just have to wait and see. And the salary situation too. So a lot of things are going to be going on and have to be sorted out before we can move forward in New England.
I mean, that's the thing. It's the NFL, man. I mean, it stands for not for long for a reason, bros and sis. I mean, this league moves quickly, and while the Patriots have been able to maintain for so long, you got to remember before they won the last Super Bowl, what had been 9 years in between wins. So that's a lot of time in which things aren't happening. And like you said, Brady's 41 now. I don't care what anybody says. He's a step slower, maybe 2 steps slower than he used to be. That release isn't as quick as it used to be. He doesn't throw that deep ball as well in quality as he used to. So, man, look, I mean, I ain't trying to throw dirt on the man. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's not a foregone conclusion like it would have been 2-3 years ago. That's all I'm saying.
Right. I want to give a shout out and give credit to Howie Roseman of the Eagles, their front office, their general manager. He was really aggressive in the season. He got Jay Ajayi from the Dolphins to shore up that running game, give the Eagles that big 1-2 punch. He went out and got Ronald Darby like 2 weeks into the season when the Eagles needed to shore up their secondary after their rookie got hurt in training camp and was lost for the season. They lost Peters, and they had to fill in with some backup. So, I mean, he just, all year has found players. The backup running backs, he got Barner to help out their special teams during the season. So he's made a bunch of moves to their roster. And, everybody definitely contributed that, he brought in some kind of way, Nick Foles, probably be the biggest basically on outside looking in of football 2 years ago, to Super Bowl champion. It's just amazing. And then the Eagles are probably, to be honest, a year or two ahead of their schedule. So with Wentz maybe coming back, maybe not being able to, he'll be physically healthy, but I don't know how much he'll be able to, improve on his football stuff because he's doing all this rehab with his knee. But you have to think that with more experience and this championship run under their belt and that confidence that, this could be something the Eagles start to, take over the NFC for quite a while because they're so young. A lot of their players aren't big money players as of yet. Their defense is really young. They signed up Alshon Jeffrey, so they've got the receivers and stuff in place with Aguilar and Ertz. So they look set to really be the team of the future. But like Nevi said, things change so fast. You never know, could have a Super Bowl hangover next year. And everybody's like, what's wrong with Philly? So we'll kind of see where this leads them. Now, before we go, Jesse, I want to bring this up to you as your team had the State of the Ravens this Friday. And your owner, Steve Bisciotti, had some interesting things to say. He said he almost considered firing your coach. And he also said that Ozzie Newsome will be taking a lesser role, stepping down as the official GM, but he will probably be like the number one scout in your front office. Just kind of talk about those changes heading into next season.
Okay. So, I don't know where to start. So, the part where Bisciotti was saying that he thought about firing Harbaugh, that would not have been a smart move, only because John Harbaugh can only work for the players he has. If the scouting team, if we're not scouting properly and not drafting the players that they need to, then that's what he's working with. And then that's how we have 9-7 seasons where we lose to the Cincinnati Bengals on the last drive of the scoring a winning touchdown in the fourth quarter. I kind of felt it was time for Ozzie to step aside. I'm not. On the one hand, it's just because the draft strategy has not been up to scratch since 2000. I want to say it has been up to scratch in like the past more than past 5 years. I can't give an exact year, but that's kind of where I'm kind of like on Ozzie joining the scouting team, just because our scouting team isn't up to scratch anyway. So what better would it be to have someone who was in charge of the draft strategy and the scouting team? I also remember that Bisciotti was saying that we've lost some people in our scouting team, and isn't that kind of your job to replace members of the scouting team? So although these changes are necessary, it'll be interesting to see what Eric DaCosta brings up, just because he's been under Ozzie's wing for so long. A part of me, I see it going two ways. Either he kind of stays with his philosophy because that's what he knows and understands and has, developed his career into, or he's going to be very much, I want to bring my own guys in, and that's when you kind of see the end of Harbaugh and the end of Joe Flacco and seeing what changes come up in that next quote unquote regime. So interesting times ahead. I'm wary, not wholly optimistic. The only way I'll be optimistic if we draft a skill player worth a damn, because the last one, Rashad Perryman, even in his draft report, they were saying that he was very prone to coughing up the football or, not making the catches he should be making. And I think that can only be improved by getting a scouting team that digs in deeper and identifies, hey, what about this one? And not draft skill players that have the yips. So.
All right. So at this point, I want to open it up to Nabias and Jesse for their final thoughts. So Nabias, I'll start with you, sir. Your final thoughts, shout outs, and thank yous.
Oh man, where do I start? I mean, like I said, that game was spectacular. I mean, it was really great football, back and forth. That's kind of what you want a Super Bowl to be. So, shout out to both those teams that played, and good for the Eagles, man. A lot of good people on that team who, got their first Super Bowl win, man. And RIP to Edwin Jackson. Saw this kid play high school ball here in the Atlanta area. Apparently was allegedly killed by, I'd say allegedly, was killed by a drunk driver up there. And that's really a shame, man. That kid's gone, Colts football player, very positive young man, had a whole long life ahead of him, man. And to see him gone is really disappointing and really sad. And once again, folks, Uber, Lyft, cabs, I mean, they got all these ways to never have to drunk drive, man. And, if that's actually how it went down, if that person was really drunk, as we'll find out over the next however long, it's very sad. And, life was lost. Goes way beyond football.
Most definitely. Jesse, your final thoughts and thank yous.
Yeah, I need to come back on here more often. Just life has been crazy, and thanks for sticking with me, even though there's been times where you guys could be like, forget it, she's not coming back. So thanks you guys for that. Just shout out to the city of Philadelphia, just because that city I know is literally and figuratively on fire right now. So yay, just shout out to the good people over there, because even though their fans are nuts and I don't want to cross them, I'm sure they're having a real good party right now.
All right. Well, thank you, Jesse, of course, for stopping by, and Nabias as well.
Can I add one thing there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Shout out to my family in Philadelphia, especially my grandfather, my pops, my aunts and uncles. I'm very, very happy for them. I know it's been a very long time coming, so I just wanted to give them a lot of love and congratulations to them and their team.
All right. Yeah, so Philadelphia Eagles, first world championship for their city, NFL Super Bowl championship, that is. And the NFC East becomes the first division to have all their teams have at least one Super Bowl win.